What is one of gaming's most well-known publishers doing to help entry-level hopefuls find their way in the games industry? Stick around, you'll find out. Everybody, we are back. Lucky number 13, episode 13 of the Game Industry Job Hunt Podcast. My name is Joe, I'm your host. And we are lucky in this one. We're talking to a friend of mine, Callum Bridgmount-John. Callum is the global head of early careers for Wargaming. And Wargaming has a really cool early careers program that I'm excited to talk to him more about and get some more detail for those of you that are looking to enter the games industry for the first time, get your first role in the industry. Pay attention in this one because Callum has some great insights as usual, but the additional info regarding early careers at Wargaming is really cool. So looking forward to sharing that with you guys. Really quick before we do, as always, please make sure to leave a review for the show on the podcast app of your choice. 5 stars preferably, if you don't mind. Write something nice. That'd be really, really super cool of you. And that's a great way that you can help the show grow for free. So if you are willing to do that, thank you so much in advance. Okay, with that out of the way, let's talk to Callum. All right, cool. Yeah, so like I said, I really appreciate you you coming on, Callum. This, as I was saying, this is sort of a truncated production timeline for me this week. It's been a busy couple of weeks, so I've been kind of in a hurry. So when Justina reached out and said, "Hey, Callum would like to come on, would that be cool?" I was like, "Yeah, absolutely, as soon as possible, please." So yeah, it's really great to have you on. Great to meet you. I'm glad we've gotten connected. I think you're doing a lot of really cool things at Wargaming with Wargaming Forge, and I really want to get into that for sure during this chat. But first off, just tell us a little bit about your personal journey in the games industry, sort of how you got started in games industry recruiting and recruiting in general. Just what's the Callum Bridgmount-John origin story?
Yeah, sure. So it's kind of two parts. So talking about kind of my work in early careers, I've been working in early careers for around 10 years or now so. Pretty much left university, and it's what I've done really ever since. So I've worked across a number of industries. So I started off in construction engineering, and then I went to e-commerce, telecommunications, logistics, and kind of multimedia entertainment services, and then obviously ended up at Wargaming. Most of my background has always been within kind of technology recruitment, but actually when it comes to gaming, I've been at Wargaming just over a year. I actually started playing World of Warships with my friends during lockdown, and that's when I'd kind of first heard about Wargaming and stuff. And conveniently, I was looking at their careers pages one day, or maybe got a LinkedIn notification, whichever one it was,
Yeah.
basically saying that they were hiring for an early careers manager, as you said, kind of running the department or team that was formerly known as Forge. Kind of, we changed the name in the back end of last year to reflect kind of the new work that the team are doing, which obviously I'm sure we'll discuss shortly. But yeah, kind of gaming career being about 15 months or so, and people told me it was going to be different. They said the gaming industry was a very different market, and I was surprised how different it was. I came from obviously a very corporate style background,
Yeah.
and then
Yep.
kind of moved to gaming, and yeah, it was like I obviously said worked in tech, so I was used to people come to work in hoodies and shorts and all those kinds of things. But tech corporate and tech gaming are two very different styles of work, but it's good fun.
Yeah, I actually, before I worked in the industry, the last job that I had in the industry, or before I got into the industry, was working in a percussion warehouse. So
Oh wow.
very, very different, and not even just in terms of the attire, but more, I don't have to lift heavy conga drum boxes anymore, which I really appreciate. No one's asked me to do that yet. Yeah, no, that's awesome. So, like you said, your title at Wargaming is Global Head of Early Careers, which I think is going to be an interesting ear catching, if that's a term, ear catching, eye catching, ear catching. I don't know. It is now. We
Yeah,
made it. We made
we've
it up. We
made
coined
it.
it. I think that's going to be interesting to a lot of our listeners that are looking to break into the industry, and I've found recently that we actually have a lot of those. A lot of people that listen to the show are really just trying to break into the industry. So I've been trying to have people on that can kind of speak to that, yourself included, of course. Tell us a little bit about what you do in that role and kind of how that adds to Wargaming's efforts when it comes to recruiting and that kind of thing.
Yeah, sure. So, as you said, I manage the early careers team. So, we are responsible for the global hiring of kind of interns, graduates, kind of semi junior professionals, as you said, maybe looking to break into the industry or maybe have some experience in smaller studios and looking to get into kind of that AAA type, AAA studios to kind of progress their career. But we actually do that through two different ways. So we have our internship programs. So they are as the traditional, you come in for 6 to 12 months, you work on our live games, you actually support the teams in the delivery across kind of numerous disciplines, I guess. So we hire in the art space, so 2D, 3D, VFX. In terms of kind of engineering, we have software engineers, maintenance, our platform teams, quality assurance, but we also look at kind of publishing and also the continuous kind of live services of the game, so live ops, monetization, data and marketing, data and analytics. So actually kind of not only is it kind of we built the game, we're maintaining the game, but it's actually, as you said, that continuous live service, obviously, that our games are known as. So that's kind of the one route that we have, and we actually have a second kind of series of programs that we run, and that's actually their online educational courses. So our senior colleagues in the organization, they actually act as kind of lecturers in a way for these online courses that we run for around 8 to 10 weeks or so, and they basically are designed to give you the basic understanding of a number of disciplines within the gaming industry to help those people kind of get those skills so that they can actually support their development into gaming professionals. So we run them again across the art space. So we run 2D, 3D, and VFX. Across engineering, we have software engineering, QA, and, as I said, maintenance in our platform teams. And then again, kind of on the publishing side, live ops, the monetization, and kind of marketing and data. But we are looking to kind of increase those number of courses. And as I said, it's designed to actually help people secure a role in most gaming companies. There's an opportunity to kind of secure an internship at Wargaming off the back of that, but that isn't why they were kind of created. It was actually designed to support kind of junior professionals or career changers or those people who want to maybe break into the gaming industry and just need the little bit of extra kind of skills and knowledge to just help them secure the role going forward.
Yeah, that was one of the coolest things about it as I looked into what was formerly known as the Forge. And what's it called now again?
Oh, it's early careers now.
Early careers, okay.
Yeah.
As I looked into the program, that's one thing that I thought was so cool about it is at first I sort of saw, internships, and I thought, okay, well, maybe this is just a wargaming thing, which that's really cool, even still. But yeah, the best part about it is that it's not just for internships and jobs at wargaming. That's only part of it. It's also these courses that you mentioned, the online courses that teach a variety of different disciplines and things like that
Mm-hmm.
to just help people in general find their place in the industry if they want to. And I think that is really, really cool. I think, especially right now, the state the industry's in, I think people need something like this. And I think that, especially when you're on the entry level, it's really important to have resources like this. And so I think that's really cool. Talk a little more about the early careers program is and, how it's making an impact for people, who are just getting their start.
Yes, so they are designed to give people, as you said, those practical experiences to help them. So when you run through the courses that we have, they learn all the theoretical techniques, but actually they're assigned projects, like a project they basically have to complete by the end of the course. So, for the art courses, it's put together a portfolio based on our games or, design a model in the game so that they can use that. For kind of the live ops and the monetization programs is actually about creating an actual strategy that could, in theory, be put into the game and stuff. So actually, as well as, giving them all the theory, they get that practical knowledge so that, as I said, when they're applying for roles, for art roles, people want to see portfolios. It's kind of, well, here's something I made, like look at this. But then also for those other roles, they actually have that practical experience, either for the tests that company asks people to do, or just during the interviews themselves, allows them to kind of see the end result. And then obviously from an internship perspective, as I mentioned, they work on the games that we have, so they work across kind of those departments, and they're actually supporting the games that we are running. And the work they're doing impacts probably millions of players at this point in time. So it's kind of good to see kind of they can see what happens actually in the live environment, and they can kind of learn and develop from there. So as I said, you don't come in and make the cups of tea that people think internships still are to this day. You actually get to see kind of real experience, learn from kind of the industry experts that we have, and take that learning, as I said, either to a full-time role at Wargaming, or just with the skills to be able to break into other companies, just in the industry as a whole.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's sort of like a really interesting way of throwing people into the fire without them getting burned. You know what I mean? Like, you're in a really low stakes sort of, I guess you could say, for lack of a better term, position where you're helping to affect huge change in big games and things like that. But it's like walking on a tightrope with a net, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You've been in recruiting for several years now, and like you mentioned at the top, it's not just gaming. You've done tech and all kinds of different things. That's really cool. What's something about recruiting just as a practice that you wish were more widely known by people?
um, in recent months or recent years, we don't use AI I don't use AI to screen CVs. My ATS system doesn't use AI. I'm not sure where these kind of rumors started from. You've probably seen a lot of people on LinkedIn saying, oh, if you put these three phrases, in white text in your CV, you'll trick every AI ATS that exists. They're not a thing.
I've seen a few of those. I have to admit, I haven't seen the white text part though, which is interesting.
It was put 3 lines of white text. Basically, take the keywords from the job description, put them in white text on your CV, and then the ATS will put you through to interview. And I was kind of reading them, and unfortunately, kind of job seekers, they believe it, and that's kind of it's spreading kind of not best practice. Like, as I said, my team, we probably get hundreds of applications for our roles every time that every time we open them, and they read every CV that gets sent to us. So yeah, it's not a robot, it's not AI doing it. It's a member of my team looking at the CV and going from there. So these AI ATSs that people think exist, yeah, they don't.
Yeah, I think some of that's becoming more prevalent, and I can say, my most recent job hunt, I got laid off and was on the hunt for 8 months, about 8 or 9 months, and that was pretty brutal. It's rough, and I know a lot of people have been looking for even longer than that. I think part of it is you just get to a point where you're thinking, okay, or at least I was thinking, okay, my resume is good. I know my resume is good. I know I'm interviewing well. Sure, I have a bad interview here and there, but as a rule, I'm interviewing well. I'm networking, I'm reaching out, I'm doing the legwork, but I'm not seeing results right now. And I think at a certain point you start to just kind of think, okay, what could be happening here that is out of my control that is causing me to not make progress, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I've heard plenty of stories of companies that aren't as good about that as Wargaming seems to be, as far as reading every resume and things like that. But I know that it's hugely important and hugely appreciated by people that you guys do that. I'm sure that's not something that you get to hear very often or at all. But I can tell you that if I applied to a job at Wargaming, and to be honest with you, now I'm wondering if I didn't over that 8 months. I think I might have. I can't remember. But knowing that my resume would actually be read by a human being and considered carefully in that way would be really appreciated, even if the role didn't work out. So that is really cool that you guys do that.
Yeah.
What's the biggest mistake that you see game industry job hunters specifically, but job hunters in general? What's just the biggest mistake that you see people making right now as they look for a new role?
I mean, mistake is probably not the right word. I think people have their own approaches to how they job search and stuff. So I think from my perspective, like I think there's dream companies that people want to work for, I think, and they have this view that you have to be in this company to be considered successful in the industry that you may be applying for. So for
Mm.
gaming, it's kind of you have to be at a AAA studio to be successful, and that's not always the case. Sometimes the indie studios that are coming up these days, the smaller ones, like they also can give you just as many opportunities as the AAA studios. So I think it's good to obviously have the list of companies that you want to work for, but I don't think that means you should discard the rest of them. Especially kind of with me looking at kind of the junior recruitment and stuff, kind of as you say, kind of you look at the AAA studios and you leave university and they're the ones that you know and they're the ones that you want to work for because maybe you know the games or whatever it might be. But actually, we've seen obviously a large increase in indie studios over the past few years that actually are doing some great work as well. And actually, you can gain a lot of experience from them to support your career and journey and everything like that. So I think that's one of the things is holding out for one or two companies to have a role that you're kind of perfect for, and then maybe overlooking some of the other ones that actually could give you that same level of experience, but it's just a smaller name on the CV. But it's still an opportunity, and you probably still learn quite a lot from them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody's got to start somewhere. And to your point, the idea of AAA gaming in the industry right now is a big topic of conversation as far as, where does it go from here? Because the production timelines are getting, they have to get shorter and shorter.
Mm,
They're costing more and more. And then, you have to have so many people on the team in order to meet these shortened production timelines and these increasing revenue goals. It causes burnout for the developers and the employees themselves. And then at the end of the day, because of the poor planning and the misallocation of resources in many cases, games aren't successful. AAA games aren't successful. They don't meet expectation. And then from there, that's where the layoffs happen, right? Right after that, like clockwork.
yeah.
And I think that the idea of, like you're saying with indies, the idea there is the indie studios, the indie folks that I know and that I'm aware of tend to be very measured in how they grow. You don't really see a lot of indie studios getting cash and then growing the team exponentially where it's just clearly too much. Like you guys are clearly growing too fast. It seems like those approaches are a lot more measured from some of those folks in my experience, at least what I've seen. And so, yeah, to your point, I think there's a lot of value in shooting your shot with indies because if nothing else, there could maybe be more of a sense of stability, even though that's a really weird word to use in the game industry right now. Don't I totally get that. But I think the thinking is different because it has to be. There are no shareholders. It's just us and you've got a handful of people, maybe one person that started this thing and they understand I have these other people's livelihood in my hands. It's my responsibility and I have to treat it as such. And that's really how all leaders in this industry should be thinking. And unfortunately it's not, clearly. I think focusing on an indie path, at least to get started, if nothing else, is a great idea. I think if you can get your way into a AAA studio, you should for sure because you really can see how the machine works when it's really firing on all cylinders, and that's really cool to see. But I don't think anybody should limit the potential of what they're able to do or what they can do or where they're applying just based on the level of game that they make, AAA or indie or anywhere in between. So yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, and I'm not saying don't apply for the Triple A's because I still like interns, so I'd still like to have some. But as you said, it's kind of
Absolutely.
have it mixing the approach for both because you never know what might happen. The next indie game could be the next Triple A studio, like who knows? So let's just don't get disheartened if it's not the first name on the CV.
Yeah, I think the key for me, one of the keys for me was looking at roles like not applying for any role that says, "Oh, community, oh, social media," just anything, right? But we've talked a lot on the show here about the idea of snipe versus spray, right? Where you can find yourself getting into trouble in terms of long waits and it's just not a good fit and you're spinning your wheels and wasting a lot of time. if you were using the spray approach where you're just applying for everything, really focusing on the roles that you think are going to be home runs for you is a much better strategy. And that turned out to be true for me, leveraging my network to get my foot in the door for interviews and different roles and things like that was also great.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing you said about the spray approach is kind of to an extent, if you're applying for, 20, 30 jobs a day or however many people are applying for, it's probably a slight exaggeration now, but one of the other things that's happening is you're applying with the same process, the same applications, the same CV, and actually kind of getting the feedback and looking at the CV can also help in a way because you're kind of not pushing yourself out by just having the same approach over and over and actually taking the time looking at what recruiters are coming back with and saying and then kind of tweaking the approach and going from there. And I appreciate that obviously job seeking in itself nowadays is essentially becoming a full-time job for people because of
100%.
how many interviews they're doing, the test tasks, all these kind of different things that companies are asking them to do. And I think kind of for us, we have, it's a couple of rounds of interviews and a test task, which takes a day or two to complete. But, you hear the horror stories from other people. It's kind of 7, 8 rounds of interviews,
Yeah.
2-week kind of projects or tests that they have to complete and then present. And it's kind of, these people just want to kind of get back in the industry and kind of, as recruiters, some companies are making it a lot harder as well, just because of how many steps they're asking for. Because, as you said, during that time when you're completing all of this, the team is still the recruiters are still trying to find people, and kind of the teams are struggling as well because they're 1 or 2 people down, and it's kind of always an interesting approach when you see, as you said, the 7 or 8 interviews that people have to complete because that takes a long time for people.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. I ran through a few of those and had to do some. I didn't run into anything where I had to do big massive tests, but I did have to do some things. There were a couple where they wanted me to make videos, which just was really silly, And I understand the thinking there. Oh, let's see this person on video, see what they're like, and that kind of thing. But you can't get that from you can't get that from a random 30-second video that you ask somebody to make on their phone while applying for a job. That's ludicrous.
Yeah.
In the line of work that I'm in, I've seen plenty of people talk about how they applied at a small studio or a small company or something, and the company was like, "Okay, create a social strategy and plan around this game or around this thing or whatever." And to the point where they could just tell, "Okay, you're going to basically just take what I give you and use it." Like I'm not working for you for free here.
Yeah.
There can be a lot of exploitation and things like that in the process as well. But one thing that you mentioned that stuck out to me there is in this idea of spraying and applying for everything you see, and you mentioned using the same CV. How important do you think it is for people to create custom resumes for at least the really big home run roles that they're applying for?
Uh, I I don't personally. The reason being, as I said, kind of people are applying for a considerable number of roles these days, and being asked
Yeah.
to write your CV 20 times to tailor it to each role, which we know in some cases isn't even going to get looked at by recruiters for whatever reason. You're never going to get any feedback on it. I think this idea is kind of um, to me it's ludicrous in a sense because
Mm.
I've moved roles a number of times, and I've never kind of tailored a CV or a cover letter or anything like that out of my own kind of principle because every company wants something different and every kind of cover letter is different, and there's a lot of reasons why. But I think just showcasing your own skills in the CV is the most important thing to do. It's kind of people get bogged down by this belief that, as I mentioned earlier with the AI, your CV has to have every keyword in the job description in it. And
Yeah, absolutely.
that's not the case. It's this idea that, okay, the job description's got 10 keywords and 10 bullet points, so I need to go through all 10 of those and make sure that my CV contains them in some way. And in most cases, you probably need 5 or 6 of the skills, and you can learn the other 4 on the job. Especially kind of
Yeah.
obviously from the junior hiring, which I do. It's kind of you're not going to have every skill on the resume. What we want to see is kind of that willingness for people to actually learn the skills that they don't have, and to an extent also being self-aware enough to say, actually, you know what? at this moment in time, I don't have this skill, but I can learn it and I can develop it and I can grow into the role. And that for us is more important than, as I said, somebody coming in who sits there and says, I can do all of these things in, week 2 of the job. It's kind of, actually, I wasn't completely honest there. Yeah. So I think it's more about knowing what your skills are and making sure that you're aware enough to identify that there are some areas that maybe you don't have, but don't let that put you off from applying.
I think that raises a couple of really interesting things. Number one, don't let your perceived lack of skill stop you from applying. I completely agree with you there, and that's something that I've always held true to as well. Like if you're looking at a job description and like 70 to 80% of it you've got covered, or maybe even 60 to 80% you've got covered, and the rest you can learn, are confident you can learn how to do and know how to do. I agree. I think that's valuable. I think that the term you mentioned, self-awareness, I think that's super important, of being able to show, hey, yeah, I know I don't know this right now, but I can figure out how to do this. And I totally agree with that. I think that's super important to show that not only you can grow, but you're willing to grow. I think that's a really big thing, because game industry is so team oriented, and people are going to be really careful about, when you hit the panel interview stage. I think if people can sense that you're in any way sort of in it for yourself, and you're going to, hinder the team in any way, I think that really, really hurts. And I think one way to help yourself there is to show that willingness to grow and that willingness to support the team and support others. And I think having that self-awareness, I think that's super, super important. One final question here for you. This is something I usually ask people in 2-parters along with the biggest mistake, but I decided to be spicy today and split it up. What can I say? You've talked about, mistakes that you see people making as they hunt for a new job. Other than the things that we've mentioned, and you've given a ton of awesome insights here, so I know this might be tough actually at this point in the chat, but other than the stuff that you mentioned, is there a number one piece of advice that you would give people who are currently looking for their next gig in video games?
I think we've covered a lot, but I think the main thing is, as you mentioned, the industry is tough at the moment, and there's no way of kind of pretending that it isn't. And there are kind of a lot of talented people on the job market at the moment trying to secure their next role. And I think the important thing is that doesn't mean that, a career in gaming isn't for you just because, you're not getting the interviews or whatever it might be. It's just, it's tough at the moment, and we all know that. So I think that's the main piece, is kind of don't give up. Kind of, yes, you see the horror stories of all the layoffs in the industry at the moment, and there's a lot of them, and the AAA gaming market is changing in itself and everything like that. But I think that's not a reflection of these people as individuals. It's just the way the market is at the moment. I think that's really all I can say, is kind of don't get disheartened. Just because it's not working out right now doesn't mean it won't in the long run. And I think that's kind of the thing that's the best piece of advice I can give, besides everything else we've covered, is actually, just stick at it and it will work.
I think honestly that there's no magic button that you can say, press this magic button and all of a sudden you'll have a role and you'll be all set. This will all be over. But I think that advice really is the closest thing to it. I think that's the closest thing to that magic button advice that some people might be looking for, is not to give up. Because it is taking a long time for people to find jobs in the industry right now. And I completely agree with you. It's got nothing to do with you as a candidate or your skill level. It's got nothing to do with that. There's so many talented candidates out there right now. There's so many, tens of thousands, and you just have to keep going and keep pushing until you find something that is a good fit for you, and they know that you're a good fit for them, and then boom, there you go. Callum, listen, man, thank you again so much. I appreciate it. Where can people find you and connect with you if they want to?
Yeah, sure. So I'm on LinkedIn, and if you want to find out more about kind of the early careers pages, we have those for wargaming as well. But yeah, LinkedIn is the best place to find me.
Sounds good. Well, hey, listen, man, I really appreciate it. Let's stay in touch, and I hope to talk to you soon.
Great. Thanks very much for having me.
All right, everybody, that's going to about do it for episode 13 of the Game Industry Job Hunt podcast. Thanks again to Callum for joining us. Really appreciate that. Thanks again to you for listening. Really appreciate that in a big way. Couldn't do it without you, obviously. please do me a favor. Leave a 5-star review for the show on the podcast app of your choice. Wherever you are listening to this, it's greatly appreciated. Let's reach as many people as we can and help as many people as we can that may be out there in the industry looking for their next landing spot, okay? It's tough out there right now. We got to stick together and let's help each other out wherever we can. So with that said, keep pushing and we'll see you soon. Take care.